Welcome to Insightly. I'm Alyssa McGinn.
And I'm Jordan Walker. We're your hosts on a mission to empower executives and business leaders with the knowledge they need to turn data into a driving force for innovation. Join us every episode as we share real-world case studies and provide practical tips to unlock the full potential of your business through data and analytics.
So if you're ready to transform your relationship with data, hit that subscribe button, because in the world of business, insight is power.
Well, welcome back, everyone. It is another session of our Insightly podcast. And if this is your very first time listening, welcome to Alyssa and I's little data nerdy hour. Really, if this is your first time tuning in, this podcast is really centered around all things data and as it relates to businesses and organizations. Alyssa and I started this podcast because we were having a lot of these conversations in a conference room with just ourselves. And we thought, maybe other people might benefit from this. Whenever we take these conversations outside of just ourselves, we also learn a ton, and we're just super passionate about this. So if you work in a business, this podcast might be for you. It doesn't matter if you're a super techie person. It doesn't matter if you deal with like CRMs or what you typically think data is. We really try to make this relatable to all roles within a business, the challenges that exist. Data moves quick, just like technology does. And so there's a lot of shifts occurring. And we know that activating data is a challenge because there are a lot of components to it. So anywho, anything to add on that brief description, Alyssa?
No, I think I will add. I was just like reflecting and thinking that companies that utilize data and leverage data, like that is the greatest competitive advantage moving forward.
100%.
And I think that's also part of my why for this podcast is because, no matter if that's like starting really small right now or huge BI initiative, like using data that you already have within your business, like will set you up for success.
Yeah.
And I want people to know how to do that.
Yeah. And I think that I would agree that that's part of my why as well. And I think in a lot of our conversations, what I really try to focus on is, a lot of what I do in a sales and marketing world is now dependent on good data and good insights to know what direction to go in. And there, more often than not, I have to start with identifying what data do we even have? And we get into some scenarios where maybe the data just isn't structured in a way that it can actually be activated, which kind of hinders our ability to really hit the ground running quickly. So if you are tuning in on video and you're like, who's this amazing lady that we've got joining us here today? It is our absolute pleasure to introduce everyone to someone that we just talk about constantly.
We talk about this person.
Shae Blevins.
Hello.
The Third House Company. I have known Shae our entire adult lives. We met in college. Our careers have crossed and intertwined throughout the last 10 to 15 years. What I have really adored about knowing Shae is Shae is a Jane of all trades. In marketing, you have excelled at everything from copywriting and great content creation and social media management and, all of those kind of things. But you've also helped run global photo shoots and video shoots. You've run major media relations campaigns. But I think one of my favorite things about you, Shae, is that you love all the things that I hate. And one of those things that you love that I hate is cleaning up dirty data. This episode is going to be airing in October, and one of the spookiest things that could happen in your data is dirty data and bad data hygiene. And so,
do I get to add the things I love about
yeah, please,
okay.
please. Let's go along this path.
So I met Shae not as long, but it was in 2020.
Yeah.
2022, we went through a program together called The Thread. We were in a mastermind together, and at the time, I didn't know we would work together. I don't know, it felt you were kind of debating what your next moves were, kind of figuring out where your career was headed, and I was there. We were all supporting each other. And then when you started Third House Co., I had been kind of secretly hoping how can I get her to help me? Because for Info Fluency, I was running marketing. I wasn't actually doing it. I was subpar, trying to send out emails every once in a while. And so Shae started helping us it's been a year, over a year.
Yeah, it's been a year.
Yay!
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And we started with an audit, and she told us everything that was wrong.
That you absolutely needed to hear.
Opportunities, yeah.
Opportunities.
And I think now we spent the past year like going through all those things. We've done everything that audit showed. We've fixed and cleaned. But my favorite thing about Shae is her ability to balance the line of like anticipating needs, still seeking like approval, but also just like doing the things that need to get done.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's just not many people that can really clearly anticipate the needs of a business, especially when you're doing that in so many different industries. Like I think that's really like amazing. It literally like my mom and I, it's like something totally unrelated to marketing. She's like, what do you think? Do you think Shae? We should ask Shae about that?
No,
I'm
I
like,
call Shae frequently where I'm like, okay, this has nothing to do with any of the projects that we're on right now, but can I just like bend your ear for 5 minutes? Yeah. Because like you are sound advice. And you'll tell it like it is.
Oh, right. Yeah. Thank you. And last thing I'll say is that I'm in like multiple networking communities, and Shae and I are in one group together. And I think she is like one of the easiest people for me to effusively praise and refer.
100%.
And I probably am, I'm around a lot of other people that want to be referred, or we're trying to, help each other out. And I'm like, yeah, they seem like a nice person. But with Shae, I'm like, I can literally like tell you what she's done for me and quantify that.
But should we admit our problem right now?
Yeah, probably.
We've referred you too many times.
We
can't anymore because we still need Shae. So we're actively figuring out how to clone you.
But maybe she could hire someone, clone them, and then
before we started this recording, we were literally just talking about, could Shae start a component of her business where she trains other people to be Shae?
Yeah.
As long as I get the OG Shae, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, the other people that we referred to her can get the other people.
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to know, like, how are you?
How
like,
do
the
you
way
do
you
what
are?
you do?
Okay, so the how is not, I have no idea. Because thank you for saying all those nice things about me. Super appreciate that. I'm going to put that on my website when I build it. I'll go on LinkedIn. It's fine. I approach everything I do with like a desire to organize and process it. I want it to be very timeline, very, step by step. And not everything does that, but I try to fit it into a step by step and a timeline and a process, because then you can start anticipating. So once you have the back end built, you can go, okay, well, here are the needs that pop up automatically all the time. And that's how you anticipate needs. It's helpful when you have the experience to do it with any specific client or any specific project you're working on. I have experience with InfoFluency, so I know when things need to hit. And when new things come up, you can pivot really easy because you have that structure. And so I like having structure in my work, and I like having structure in my data.
Well, before we get into the data, since we've just like spewed a bunch of things that we love about you, why don't you take the opportunity to tell people what you really want them to know about you? Talk to us about Shae Blevins. What do you focus on with Third House Co.?
So my business really focuses on specializing in helping organizations onboard sales, marketing, and business development processes. And those processes and campaigns can include anything from content marketing to email marketing to managing your social media. I really, really love building that process from business development, or from marketing to business development to sales, and watching customers move through that journey. I don't do a whole lot on the back end of that, like the customer portion of that. Like once they become a customer, unless they're coming back around for that nurture, or that upsell or that cross sell. But what I really love to do is help businesses figure that out. And then on the other side of that, I also really love going through spreadsheets. It is psychotic.
But I love, this is one of those areas where I'm like, thank God for you, because I don't know the number of times that I have received where it's, you start going through kind of like your discovery of, let's talk about data, blah, blah, blah. And if you've listened to any of our previous episodes, you might know that Alyssa and I did a short episode on like to spreadsheet or not to spreadsheet, with your data, and some of those like overcomplicated scenarios that we talked about, like when it's probably time for you to like move away from the spreadsheets, or like beyond time for you to move away from spreadsheets. Those are the kind of like dirty data scenarios that I might get from a client, and then I open it up and I immediately want to cry. It's not that I don't know how to organize a spreadsheet. It's not that I don't know how to run formulas. It's that my brain literally breaks at that point because I am so much better at looking at the data once we've, like, I like the planning piece in the front end of it of, okay, what do we need to look at? What do we need to analyze? Yada, yada. What kind of actions and stories are we hoping to see? But then I want it visualized. Like, I want to skip everything else in the middle, and then I want it visualized. And so then we could say, oh, here's all the things that we know now. Here's all the things that we need to optimize. That middle piece of cleaning up the ugliest spreadsheets I've ever seen, if there was an award for this, like, you would get it, because I don't even know if there's like, I don't know if I've ever even heard anybody say like, that is a beautiful spreadsheet. But when I get it back from Shae, I'm like, that is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, talk to us about why you like that so much, and what is it about that process?
I think I like spreadsheets because you can always go back to a spreadsheet. You can always look at, if you have a mess in your CRM and you don't know where things are, or if you have a mess in your contact database and you don't know where anything is, you can always go back to a spreadsheet. You can manually edit a spreadsheet. Yeah. You can assign rules to the spreadsheet. You can lock it down.
You like the control of the spreadsheet.
So much you can control in a spreadsheet, and there are so many things in platforms, software services like for CRMs or marketing or et cetera, that they have those rules. You can build those rules, but they don't all work the same. So, you look at a software, you look at a CRM, generally it works the same as every other CRM. It does the same things, but it doesn't do them the exact same way.
Right. We actually just went through that, didn't we?
Yeah. It doesn't do them the exact same way. Sometimes the system is new, or it's one of those startup CRMs that's cheaper and it's not quite perfect yet. And once you get into those things and you run into those roadblocks, the spreadsheet still works, and the spreadsheet will never not work.
Yeah,
unless you
that is
corrupt the
true.
file in some way. I think that's why I like spreadsheets. You can always go back to a spreadsheet. You can always go back to square one. You can also start with the dirtiest spreadsheet in the world and find the gaps a lot easier than looking at it contact by contact by contact.
Yeah, that is so true. That is my biggest pet peeve, I think, which is also why I love what InfoFluency does by bringing all of this data into a singular or like a single viewpoint, because nothing infuriates me more than when I'm trying to like correlate contact journeys or find common themes, and if you don't have like a system where you can kind of pull it into one spot to, analyze it, it is so infuriating to have to look at things by contact or company by company. I mean, even HubSpot that has its like sales and marketing suite connected, I'm like, why am I, like, you give me the data over here about how the marketing performed, and then I have to open up individual contacts to see which ones did something. Like I just want to explode. Anywho, yeah. Can we kick it back just for a hot second? Because something that we've kind of talked about in a couple of our other interviews, and I think this is a similar theme here, is we've interviewed people so far that are in data-oriented careers now, but didn't start going down that pathway. So Shae and I went to Wichita State University together. I think you were a year ahead of me, or we were maybe in different majors, so we didn't cross paths until maybe like our second or third year there. Knew of one another, similar friends and everything. Were you journalism?
I was journalism. Yeah.
Okay. How did you go from journalism to when we both graduated and started going into our careers? Shae's been a writer. She had her own blog for a number of years. You were one of the original foodies in town before like influencers were a thing. So how did you go from like content and really heavy, like what traditional marketing focus was, to data?
In college, I wanted to be a journalist. I really did. And I love writing stories. I love interviewing people. I love talking to people and telling their stories. The era in which I graduated with my journalism degree, there was a huge downturn.
Yeah, we graduated in the recession.
Yeah. So journalism was not an option if I wanted to pay back my student loan. So I ran off to grad school to teach. I taught public speaking, and that paid for most of my master's degree. And in my master's degree, I took a lot of like quantitative and qualitative and statistical, like communicative classes and loved it. And I also was introduced, like, for the first time to marketing in grad school. Like, oh, I could do this for a living instead. This pays. That's awesome. Heck yes. So I transitioned in grad school. And when I got out of grad school, I went straight into marketing specialist roles. And historically in my career, there was a lot of content. There was a lot of process. There wasn't a lot of data. And that was specifically because a lot of the data that I was working with in banking and aviation was locked down.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to use a lot of data. I think as marketers, we have had to pivot a lot.
Yeah.
We have to pivot, like content strategists and content marketers, they have to pivot now with AI.
Yeah.
And marketers in general, generalists like I used to be, we had to pivot. We had to incorporate data because it is almost required as part of the job description now to know what you're working with and what it's doing and have the ROI of your campaigns. And that's just from the measurement portion.
Yeah, that was a game changer when we started doing that at the agency, when we were able to actually start reporting on beyond just impressions and clicks and actually show like the user journey. And some of my like favorite moments when we worked together at the agency is when we could actually see those results, and then we would be able to collaborate and talk about, okay, if this is what we're seeing, how does that influence the social media strategy that you're working on? How does that influence the media strategy that you're working on? It was like that actual collaborative brainstorming that, like when we're in school and you're taught like that's what agencies look like or is like super collaborative. Really, I did not see that until that moment. That was true collaboration.
Data fostered the collaboration.
Yeah, data fostered that collaboration for at least for us on our team. Yeah.
Data fosters a lot of things. And, you know, from a measurement and reporting perspective, you are able to see what's working, what's not working, pivot, adjust, strategize, and all of those pieces. When you find, like when they finally fall into place just perfectly and you're seeing what you want to see, it is like the most rewarding thing in the entire world.
Yeah. Yeah. So today's topic, we want to get into that dirty data scenario and really talk about not just how it impacts your ability to like get up to speed and get up and running and whatnot, but when you're approached in those scenarios, what do you do to get around it? And so Shae, first start with in aspects of business development and marketing and sales, what are some of the platforms or tools that you're using to uncover data? Like, how do you use data?
The majority of the data I work with, so data covers a lot of different types of things. It's got a huge definition.
Yeah.
The data that I work with is very individual specific. So it's customer data, it's leads data, and that is going to be their contact information. So these are your contacts. Imagine if you want to email your newsletter, the email, like the emails you're sending, that's the data that I work with. When I am in those spreadsheets or systems like a Constant Contact or a Salesforce or a HubSpot, all of those various CRM, email marketing, even social media and media buying software platforms and tools, the data that I'm working with is specific to an individual.
Yeah. Which is, I think, really important to highlight because, and we've talked about this a little bit when we talked in data privacy and some of our other conversations, that especially in today's world, like if you are really trying to make your paid media perform effectively, if you're really trying to stretch your marketing dollars further, you really need to adopt more of like a customer-centric mindset. You really hone in on the segments of contacts or customers that you're trying to look at. And how do you use that segment to identify others who look like them? How do you use that to then optimize your paid campaigns for greater performance? And how do you measure it to see of those contacts that we've sent out who actually responded? Because as you mentioned, like marketers have had to pivot, and it's not even that like marketers need to report on here's what the campaign did. You need to report on this is what it did and here's how it relates to the sales that we were trying to achieve. And sales comes from direct customers.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you pointed that out. How would you describe dirty data?
I have lots of terms. I think I wanted to say old, but I don't like the word old. Dated has a long history of not being touched. It's dusty, got cobwebs in the corners. The dirtiest data I see from a contact perspective is when those contacts are disengaged or haven't been nurtured or haven't been categorized or segmented in some way. We have just a bucket of people. And buckets of people are not good for marketing.
Yeah, true.
Because that's like throwing, here's my offer across the room and trying to get it into that bucket of people and then hoping you can find the one that picks it up.
Spray and pray. See what happens.
Long are the days, though. Gone are the days of spray and pray, right?
Right. I mean, that is like when you would do these major broadcast or cable TV buys. I mean, cable was even in like traditional sense, cable was always like a little bit more targeted than broadcast, because at least you can say on average, these types of individuals watch ESPN or something like that. But still, it's a huge gamut of people. When you see target personas today that are even like, okay, your target persona is between the ages of 25 and 54, female.
Awesome.
Can we talk about all of the segments of women between the ages of 25 and 54?
Offensive.
Yeah, it really is. Like to anyone, any category.
Yeah.
So in a recent project that we've been working on, one of the things that we identified is outside of just knowing where those contacts might exist in a sales pipeline, we didn't have really any details on
What they would be interested in.
What they would be interested in, what their preferences were, how the conversations even got started, where these leads even came from, like what the lead source was.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Do you ever find the problem, like, outside of just them not being activated or used in any way? Like, they were pulled in from, okay, we had this event, and we pulled this subgroup and this event, and the naming conventions are different, and what they tracked about them is different. Interesting information that you would want to know that you have about some, but not about others.
Well, I think when you're pulling in contacts that you've met, so like your CRM is where you house all of your leads, obviously, or a spreadsheet. When you're pulling in all of those contacts that you've met, one of the things that I always recommend is to categorize them immediately and categorize them as standard as possible. So you want a standard method of categorization. If you meet someone at a mergers and acquisitions event, M&A, there we go, then they need to be M&A. You can subcategorize as much as you want, but that high level category needs to happen almost immediately. So now you know these are contacts who I have engaged with about mergers and acquisitions or about business intelligence or whatever else that you're working on. You have that high level categorization. And you can say, all right, I'm going to create a campaign around that categorization. And inside of that campaign, I'm going to put, maybe it's an email campaign, I'm going to put some triggers on these links and see what they do. See what they do with these links. And if they don't do anything, you re-engage them in a couple of months or so. You do some sales process around it. But the idea there is that you have a high-level categorization. You know what you're supposed to be talking about to them. And if they don't engage, they are not a lead.
Yeah.
That's it. If they don't engage, they are not a lead. They are not ready for you. Put them on the back burner.
What about if they're not ready for you, but there's another strategy at play? Because I'm just thinking about it's like M&A. I went to an event Wednesday. I did put all of my leads at the hotel that night, took pictures of all their cards, put them in, tagged them.
I love it.
3 times, down the thing. So they may not all buy from me.
Right.
They might not be direct. They may be channel partners. They may be referral partners. Because I think then even that level of categorization in the data starts to be really helpful. But I think people barely tag. I mean, I feel like you've influenced me to do that, but
I think the challenge that I often see is that there's kind of a blurry line between what's a prospect and what's a lead. I mean, anyone's a prospect until they prove to you that they are or are not a lead, right?
This is interesting.
And so being really good partners with, and you're in business development, so then being really good partners with the business development team, one of the core challenges that we experience as marketers is when you're talking about categorizing and segmenting, it always comes back to, well, how much time do I need to take pulling in data entry that's actually going to deliver a reward? So if you have a sales team sitting down and doing all the tagging and everything that you described, that can seem really cumbersome. But it is highly important because otherwise all you're doing is having conversations on what your gut feeling is. There's no data to analyze to see, okay, well, maybe the individuals that are currently prospects, like, we don't have any way of knowing how have they engaged with us since you last met them. We don't have any way of knowing what other groups or whatnot that they're actually a part of. And so a lot of times what I end up seeing is that if you have a bundle of business cards from an event, oftentimes they'll be added as contacts and may or may not be touched any further than that. A lead doesn't, or a person does not become a lead until they've given you some sort of qualifier to say that they are interested in what you have to say and that they have a need for it. That can be a long process between prospect to lead because it involves relationship building. Especially if you're in a B2B environment, it may start with some elusive question that they're asking that is like kind of sort of related to what you do. But then you start having good conversation with them just like as friends and as contacts. And then you start learning about, oh, well, the thing that you actually need is not what we provide. I'm going to refer you to someone else, or I'm just going to tell you it's not what we provide. Or you end up finding that I can actually help you with, and here's how it impacts you. But a lot of times we dump in those contacts, or what I see is we dump in the contacts, and then we choose whether or not to follow through with them based on gut feelings. And then marketers often hear, well, that didn't work. Or when it's like, well, you've got 300 prospects in here. What are we doing with them? Well, none of them are good. Then why are they here? Why are they even here? Like,
Those contacts that you make that are not quite leads, they are going to come back
yeah.
to you in some way as long as you're building that relationship. And a lot of times that falls on a single salesperson on a small team or a sales team in general. That relationship building portion is so important, and it has nothing to do with data, but it has everything to do with being a good salesperson.
And that is what business development and salespeople are so good at, is creating conversation and learning about people. And what I wish a lot of teams would realize is that the CRM is essentially the diary for that.
Yeah.
So if you're just engaging over a coffee and you learn, okay, they still haven't given me a great reason for us to continue forward, but I actually just got a referral. Note that, because then if you start to identify that you have prospects that aren't good business, but they make great referral partners, that is a segment that could be built on.
And there are, ways to identify that in your first interaction and in future tagging opportunities. I talk a lot about email marketing because I focus a lot on email marketing. It's one of the platforms that I specialize in and processes that I specialize in. We want to make sure that we are treating them with the respect that they deserve.
Yeah.
You've met them. Let's build a relationship with them before we start putting them in nurture cycles or something like that. So, if you drop them in a nurture campaign to get them to eventually buy something from you, people know what's happening now.
Yeah.
People know that there are CRMs, especially if you're B2B. That CEO knows he's in a CRM.
Yeah.
He's in every single CRM for every company
And that's why
that
he
could
has
possibly sell.
Yeah.
So that is making sure we're treating that contact with respect and that contact information with respect. It exists in your CRM, that it can stay there. If you sell it, that's bad. If you use it inappropriately, that's bad.
That can tick someone off so fast because it's like, you literally shook my hand at this event. I trusted you with my information. You said something about us going and getting a coffee, but now I'm immediately getting a sales promo in my inbox when I've got 400 to clean out after this event. Of course, you're not going to get engagement off of that unless it is the hottest burning thing on their list right now. And those hot burning responses are what ends up clouding our minds thinking, well, that worked, we should do it more. No, you just happen to hit that one person at the right time. Everyone else is irritated.
Yeah.
And it's a fine line. I mean, there are policies and regulations in place that prevent certain things from happening. A lot of the people that I work with directly are not affected by those policies and processes. So, inbound is always best. And that is just making sure that somebody's coming to you. And that's going to be for your advertising. That's going to be through your organic content outreach. That's going to be through your relationship building.
Yeah.
If they're coming to you, if they give you their information willingly and then say, yes, I want to continue to receive your information. I love your information. That's going to be your best prospect.
Yeah.
That is the prospect that can turn into a lead faster.
Yeah.
Or more concrete. And those concrete prospects turning into concrete leads turn into customers because you have built a relationship with them based on respect and trust.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about dirty data in relation to either incomplete contact data or contact data being in the wrong field or whatever. How does that impact a business's ability to grow, to market?
So, imagine you have all of these leads. They're coming in, you have, first, last name, company name, email address. You have nothing else to go off of. You can go in and clean that manually, going, this company works in this industry. I have this product that matches that need, da-da-da-da-da. That is one of the steps that I would recommend doing before doing a whole lot of outreach, unless you have, a welcome series that gets people to indicate to you, this is what I'm interested in.
Preferences.
Like preferences. Yeah, I run managed preference campaigns for several of my clients, and it basically dictates, hey, are you interested in this content? If you are not interested in this content, please unsubscribe. It's kind of like a clean yourself out, or we're going to clean you out.
Yeah, which I think sometimes and we've been a part of these conversations together where, there are some clients where it's like, well, no, I just want to get started right now. Like, I just want to do this thing right now. They don't want to do the foundational work necessarily. But in order for any sort of campaign or strategy to be formed, we have to know what we're working with. And we have to know, who's qualified. We recently had a scenario where we thought we had a lot more contacts to work with than we really did. When you just looked at it from a CRM level, it was like, oh, cool. We have a ton of contacts within this segment. When you actually pulled it, though, a great number of them were missing email addresses. So again, unless we were opening up contact by contact, we would have never figured that out until Shae pulled this dirty spreadsheet and started correlating things to find okay, actually a third of this list, we don't actually have contact information for them. Where did they come from? Turns out they were LinkedIn leads that just kind of started out as a cold call, kind of cold outreach, no previous relationship from what we could tell. So then that kind of changed the strategy a little bit of, well, if a third of these contacts don't have emails, then obviously we're not going to be able to contact them that way. So what do we do about the LinkedIn scenario? And then as we kept peeling back layers of this onion, what we realized is this strategy is actually not so much about moving them ahead in the pipeline. It's about identifying who should actually be in the pipeline to begin with. And we've found quite a few people who have zero business being there.
And inbound also means anybody who's coming through your website on a specific form. So if they sign up for a webinar, that webinar topic, attach it to them.
Yeah.
If they download an ebook, that ebook topic, attach it to them. Like case studies, et cetera. Those are the topics that you would want to use to categorize your inbound leads.
Do you do that, or do you so a perfect world scenario is you have a CRM system that is connected to all of the things so that it automatically updates for you. That perfect world scenario rarely exists. So what do you do to help guide that process, for teams when it sounds like it's just another task that they need to complete?
From a structure perspective, I always want to go to the foundation. And if you have platforms that are disparate, they're not connected to each other, they're not related to each other in some way. So here's your CRM that doesn't talk to your email marketing system, that doesn't talk to your website, but you have all these half connections. Make sure at the foundation there is something in each of these places that matches. So that could be a contact ID, subscriber key, or a form ID. Those things that can correlate, like if this contact fills out this form ID tells this email marketing system, do this automation, run this program. And that is my favorite thing to do.
I was going to say, I actually love that because I thought we were going to go down a path of, well, here's how I talk to sales teams about this. But you just gave us a completely different route to take.
But I think it all comes full circle because we've talked a lot about challenges and barriers for people to access, visualize, and analyze their data. And what you just mentioned is probably one of the biggest challenges is that
connecting it.
IDs don't match in systems. So we try to pull data from, and then you get into financials, they've ordered something. Does their ID of the customer match what's in the CRM,
Yeah.
how can you associate that revenue
Yeah.
to this customer ID? Because in Salesforce, it's this. In QuickBooks, it's this. In their order system, it's this. And that is like one of the biggest things that clients per us are like, well, just match them.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and it's like, well, okay, like we can house all of this in like a CDP that like helps to correlate, but then it gets into expense and infrastructure. There are barriers on multiple levels of this, but what you're kind of describing, Shae, is you've found ways where each of these systems, they have connectors to a thing that you're taking those connecting pieces, the IDs that don't match, and you're using that as the trigger to the next thing. That is brilliant.
Yeah, so like on your website, you have either a form ID or a lead source. So like you have, I'm going to call it downloadable PDF because that's as creative as I can get right now. So your form says lead source, downloadable PDF. Downloadable PDF is a tag or something inside of your email marketing system that says, somebody just downloaded this PDF. I'm going to automatically tag them. Here is where they go next. Through this automation that can then talk to through something like Zapier, or, you know, if it has an integration that can talk to your CRM that says, note these things down. So those are the automations that you can build. None of it is truly forever not manual. Like there are some manual pieces that you're going to have to do, but the automations that you build at the foundation can help you make sure that all of your systems are connected and collecting data in a way that is beneficial for you for future marketing or sales campaigns.
That's super cool.
It's super fun too.
Well, I love that you love this.
I'm like matching IDs and automating.
Like the whole thing sounds great.
Yeah.
However, what you're describing also like kind of calling it back to the very start of our conversation. And unfortunately, due to time, this is probably where we're going to have to wrap. At the beginning, you talked about marketers having to pivot quite a bit. Like, I mean, when we graduated to now, and again, years has passed.
Yep.
A lot of technology has changed. Data has become a lot prevalent. And what you just described is like you've found a niche within your career path that has become highly technical.
Yeah.
And working across a lot of different platforms, it's like you are pulling puzzle pieces together in order to make things work. And I think so far throughout some of these interviews that we've done, and I think in one of ours with the Meritrust team, it was don't be afraid to explore and problem solve. And what you just walked us through is a way that you have figured out, you know, enough about the tools, you know, you have the experience to understand like what the business needs are. And you started to pull pieces of the puzzle together to say, okay, perfect world scenario can't be accomplished. What can I do instead to make sure that we're at least pulling in good data to use, that things are working effectively and efficiently, and it's still like helping us understand if we're achieving results or not.
Oh yeah,
on this career journey.
I love technical marketing. I like to get into the dirt.
Seems like marketing is heading into a much more technical trajectory, and I feel like you're kind of ahead of the curve because I think marketers are going to have to adapt and build that into their skill set, whether they're in an agency or.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that's true?
Absolutely. I think a lot of the conversations, I feel very encouraged that a lot of the conversations, at least around our like local marketing associations, has been going a lot more toward, you know, how do we use tools effectively, how I need to be using data in my career. Marketers know what questions are being asked and they want to be able to deliver. But everything that you do in your career, Shae, a lot of what I do this wasn't taught to us. Social media was kind of a thing when we graduated. And so there's been a lot of shifts. And I think it's difficult. There are programs that exist like out at WSU Tech that are getting students a lot more hands-on with platforms than we were ever able to do. But the reality of the situation is if marketers, up-and-coming marketers want this kind of experience, you have to go out and find it. And that also means that businesses have to give them a good length of leash to test and trial, because that's the only way that we've learned in our careers, having really good environments where we can say, I don't know, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that both businesses and up-and-coming marketers and current marketers all have to collaborate on, of being comfortable in that I don't know, but I am willing to learn and I will figure it out mode.
That's a shift for business owners because marketing has been
Yeah.
viewed as the silver bullet, golden key, right?
We could have a whole episode on me standing on a soapbox about this, I think, because I really
Won't
want to go
ever.
on it, but it very much so, yes.
And that's where that brainstorming collaboration that you were talking about earlier really comes in, because the answers to questions that people ask about anything, a lot of people don't know. You can't remember everything about everything.
Yeah.
Right.
But Google exists, so that's helpful. But I don't know, I'll figure it out is the majority of a marketer's career. I don't know, I'll figure it out because I can.
Again,
Yes.
soapbox, but also a lot of the questions that we think or a lot of the answers we think we're going to give, you don't know until you're in it.
Yeah.
You don't know. Like, you can have some assumptions if you've got good historicals to lean against, or again, like gut reactions, but sometimes people want to ask. Like, they're trying to find an answer to something, but it takes a curious marketer in this aspect to say, okay, well, this is the question that you asked, but here's also the 3 other things that I uncovered that kind of makes this go in a different direction completely.
Well, and I think that's why starting with the audit is really smart, because what it revealed to us was there's a lot of stuff that was not fun or sexy that we had to deal with to make the good stuff work, right? And that involved rebuilding the whole back end of our website that no one sees, you know? But I think a lot of times, like, this would be the soapbox, like the silver bullet requires a lot of foundational formational work that was just like...
You need that strategy. You need the technical know-how. And you need the creative behind it. For anything to be a silver bullet in marketing, you need all 3 of those things, and then you need a little bit of luck and timing.
So, and that goes to, and again, we'll have to like wrap this here soon. However,
We keep
but that,
saying
I
that.
know, like, again, let's just part 2 this. That goes back to our innovation conversations. And one of the first presentations that Alyssa and I gave together in front of a group of people was all around how data can be used in innovating within your business. It was centered around this innovation wheel that typically a lot of times innovation is really focused on product development and revenue. Those are only 2 pieces of this whole pie. Other parts of that pie include customer service, the networks and the partnerships that you have, your branding and your marketing. All of those pieces of the pie have to work together. A lot of what we've been soapboxing is that if the data is not available to be seen and understood by all of the individuals in charge of these different segments, you're not truly going to find effective innovation. Okay, Shae, we'll part 2 this later. Any final thoughts on dirty data that you would like to convey to our audience?
You know, I think one of the best things you can do is if you have a system in place, go into your system, see if it can filter by unengaged or disengaged contacts, figure out why those people are disengaged or get them out of your system, because you don't need to hang on to information you're not using. And a clean database is going to make your segmentation and your life in sales a lot easier.
Marie Kondo that.
Marie Kondo does not bring me joy.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Shae, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And if you would also like to join the Shae Blevins fan club, we are currently accepting memberships. Email us at hello@insightlypodcast.com. Or just in general, if you have dirty data questions that you'd like to ask and you'd want us to bring Shae back on to help answer those.
We'll catch you on the next episode.